to my channel. My name is Holly. This is continuing on part 2 of our September 2020 Walt Disney World highs and lows. The first one I did, make sure you go back and check out that one. That one ended up being a longer video and I had to splice it up, and I'm gonna have to finish my thoughts in today's video. So if you did not see that one, go back and watch and then you'll be all caught up. We are going over our last trip to Disney World, and we're talking about some of our highest moments and the things we enjoyed the most, and then comparing and contrasting with some of our lowest moments or the things that we really struggled with the most. We've talked about resorts, we've talked about restaurants, we've talked about, just general, what parks were our favorite, what parks was a pass for us this time. So I'm going to jump right back in on my list. I have a few more categories to go over with, and so let's get right in. We're going to talk about our rides now. What were our ride highlights and what were some of the rides that really just didn't hit well for our group this time around. The high for us was Slinky Dog. As I mentioned in our last video, our kids loved Toy Story Land, and that Slinky Dog ride, man, it's just perfection for smaller kids. It's not scary. It's got a little thrill to it, thrill enough that the parents enjoy it, but the little ones can ride too. Vivian was just a teeny bit too short to ride Slinky Dog, so we are so hoping that she is tall enough on our next trip because we think she will love it. They also absolutely loved Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. That was another slam dunk. Thank you, Disney. Great addition to Hollywood Studios. Desperately needed to have something, family friendly. And Mickey and Minnie are a classic, so we loved those rides. I would say a low for us was Navi River Journey. We thought, oh, it's a boat ride, it's quiet, it's calm, the kids are gonna like it. It was so quiet and so calm, it was almost boring, and our kids did not enjoy it. So unfortunately, we would pass. We probably will not be doing Navi River Journey again. It actually had a longer line than Flight of Passage, maybe because it is a family ride and more kiddos can go. But yeah, it would be a pass for us. And then I would say a very unpopular opinion, we would pass on Rise of the Resistance. We got a 2 p.m. boarding group, which seemed like a miracle with a party of 10. And I stayed back with the littlest one, Vivian, and the others went. And I think they enjoyed it, but none of them were like, even the teenagers who I thought were going to be like, oh my gosh, that was so incredible. I would say half of us preferred the Millennium Falcon, Smuggler's Run ride to Rise of the Resistance. I got to go back. I took 2 of my nieces with me, and I thought it was an incredibly immersive ride. It was quite well done, obviously, and you felt like you really did feel like you were kind of on the set or in the ride, which I know was the kind of idea. But as far as thrills, it wasn't very thrilling. It was so choppy. There's so many different components to the ride that you kind of just were, I don't know, it felt like something you were watching, not really something like, I don't know, it just didn't feel super immersive in the sense like I could actually believe that I was part of the ride. It was almost just like watching actors act and being told where to go and stand. So it was a little odd, and I know that's going to be an unpopular opinion, but our little one, he's 4, and he didn't love it, and the teenagers didn't love it, and the parents were like, it was pretty cool the way they did that, but we wouldn't go through all those hoops, the boarding groups and rushing to the park to get our boarding group again. We won't. We will be happy to go to Smuggler's Run and probably not worry about Rise of the Resistance unless the line is just non-existent. So I can already see that I'm going to get probably negative comments about that. Let's talk about Disney Springs. We love Disney Springs, which is of course the Disney shopping district there in Orlando. Tons of restaurants, tons of shops. And so I have to throw it in here as a category. What were some of the highs for us from Disney Springs? This time around were the restaurants. As I mentioned, Disney World is obviously in the middle of the, COVID new restrictions and reopenings, and it had very few options at the resorts and very few options at the park. So it was refreshing then to show up at Disney Springs and have all of these great options for restaurants. I can't recall there being a single restaurant there that had not reopened and that was not available for service. Some of the lows were the parking. We waited, I don't know, 45 minutes one of the first days just to get in. A very, very slow one lane, you know, long line of cars trying to get into the parking garage. So that was it was certainly a struggle. And of course they're limiting the amount of people that can come into the park or into the, you know, shopping center because of COVID. So I understand why they have only, you know, at that particular day they only had one parking garage open, and they wait to fill that one up entirely before they start sending people to the next one. So it just created quite a bottleneck to get parked. Same with the buses. One night we had a dinner reservation and we waited and waited at our restaurant, or excuse me, at our resort. Ended up having to call an Uber or a Lyft, otherwise we would have missed our dining reservation. So it's still an awesome place for date night or for food, for relaxing. People seem to be wearing their mask and doing all that they should, but getting to Disney Springs has become even more complicated. Let's talk about snacks. We talked about restaurants in the last video, our sit-down restaurant highs and lows and our quick service highs and lows. But let's talk about snacks because we had some good ones. Our highs this trip would be the citrus swirl. Another unpopular opinion, we're not Dole Whip people. It just tastes too much like perfume because I'm a kid of the 80s, and Bath and Body Works used to have like this, you know, cucumber melon, like pineapple scented when I was a kid, so it just tastes like my body lotion. The Dole Whip does. Sorry. So the citrus swirl though is amazing. Fresh Florida squeezed orange juice swirled with vanilla. So delicious. And then we were there for the first time. The fates have aligned, and we were there for Epcot Food and Wine and got to try some of the great festival food. We loved it. Spent way too much. Everyone always says it adds up, and it certainly does. So we spent a pile of money on snacks at Food and Wine, but they were pretty delicious. Just really great stuff. I had the sushi flower pot from Japan. We had 3 different items from the mac and cheese booth. So good. Our lows, poor Joffrey's. We tried several snacks just because it's so convenient. They have all these Joffrey coffee stations throughout the parks and even at the resorts. So I tried several iced coffees from Joffrey. We tried, a niece of mine got one of their jumbo donuts. Everything was just meh. You know, high expensive iced coffee and kind of not great. I mentioned in the other video that Joffrey's coffee has more acidity than I'm used to, so it has kind of a sour aftertaste to it, and that really doesn't do it for me. I'm not even a huge Starbucks fan because I feel like they've gone the opposite direction and they've over roasted their beans, so it's kind of got a charred taste. But I would take Starbucks any day of the world over Joffrey's. So I'm so sorry. I know there are some diehard Joffrey's devotees out there, but it's not for us. Pass on that. Go to actual bakery. Go to the Main Street Bakery. Go to Gaston's Tavern. Get a cinnamon roll there and try to avoid grabbing a quick breakfast bite at Joffrey's. For us, it's not worth the price. Now let's talk about some COVID related highs and lows. COVID changes. There have obviously been a lot of changes in Walt Disney World because of COVID, and they're trying to be safe and they're trying to do what they can to stay open and accommodate guests in a safe manner, and obviously not cause undue, you know, harm to their reputation by having an outbreak happen at their park or to their employees. Which a lot of them are unionized, and so they had to work with the unions to establish, you know, safe procedures. So as any new changes, there were going to be some we liked and some that just were really tough for us. So I would say our highs, we really liked the character cavalcades. Now, we're not sure if it's because we have younger kids, but we think it's a much better idea than having everybody queue up, you know, an hour before the parade start and sit and wait and wait. In the middle of your Magic Kingdom day, the last thing you want to do is take an hour and a half out of your day just to kind of like scope out a good spot for the parade route. So having these cavalcades come through, you know, felt like pretty spontaneously at, you know, different times. There was no line to fight through. You know, if you're trying to cut through Magic Kingdom in the middle of the day, it used to be at 3 o'clock. Trying to get from Tomorrowland to Frontierland or something like that, you're going to get stopped at several points because the parade route. And so We thought the character cavalcades were great. You can see the characters, you know, pretty good, just as good as a parade route, but you actually don't have to fight the crowd for it. So we thought that was great. It actually equaled more time in our day because we weren't sitting for an hour or so waiting for the parade to come through. Lows would have been the reduced hours. Now we were there the week after Labor Day, and it was kind of sad. Magic Kingdom closed at 7, Animal Kingdom closed at 5, even Epcot closed at 7. I mean, those are early hours for pretty much still high summer. So that just felt strange. And we'd got a lot done. I wouldn't say that we were hoping, you know, that we left the park with things undone because the crowds were less. We were able to do all we had wanted to do before we had to leave, but it just felt strange to be leaving at dinner time. And we often left hungry because instead of being able to, like, you know, get a snack or sit down and enjoy a restaurant in the parks, the park is closing and it's kind of a rush to get out and, you know, either get on a bus or find your car. And so, yeah, we came back to our resort most nights hungry, ready, trying to find some good food, of which, as I've talked about several times already, there was none to be had at the resort. So the early closures at night really made dinner kind of challenging, which was a surprise and something you should be aware of. Now, moving forward through November and the holidays, Disney has increased their closing time considerably. We're going to be going here in 5 days back to the parks. Spoiler alert. And the times are much later. I think Epcot is going to be closing at 9. So yeah, there's usually and it's going to be an extra 2 hours on the tail end of every day that we're going to get additional time in the parks, and that's to accommodate the growing you know, crowds that have started to accumulate. Let's talk about just COVID in general. Some of the highs for us were mask wearing compliance. We were shocked. Pleasantly surprised that most people were complying with the policies, and those that were not were being pretty quickly corrected. And since we've been there, we've seen the signage become even more stern, letting folks know that they will be evicted. They will be kicked out if they cannot figure out a way to wear their mask properly. So we felt pretty safe, much safer than I feel at my local grocery store where mask compliance is pretty spotty. Disney was doing a great job. The temperature checks and making sure as people enter the park, their mask is correct, not, you know, a kind of like bandana or something like that would not be as efficient as a true mask. And then the markers in the queues kept people in lines very well separated. That was great. People were following those very well. Every once in a while you get a party behind you that just wasn't paying attention, and when you would just move with you, and so it felt like you were like one big party. But usually, mostly, people were doing quite well, like staying on their marker and staying the 6 feet apart. There was plentiful hand sanitizer, usually always, I can't think of a ride that didn't have a hand sanitizer as you went into the queue and then one as you exited. So if you touched anything in between, you got hand sanitizer as you came in and then right as you left. And so it felt pretty safe. And then the signage and announcements were constant, and cast members were walking around, you know, helpfully, kindly, with Disney magic, reminding people to wear their mask correctly and, you know, to stay 6 feet apart. Some of the lows, though, and I think these are going to be hopefully helpful to you if you're planning your trip. The lows for COVID policies and procedures is that in the main walkways, for instance, Main Street USA, obviously there's no line. It's just a street. It's a pathway. And so when there is no line, there's no way for them to delineate where people should stay by the markers. They're just hoping that we are all aware of our surroundings and we try to stay 6 feet apart. Well, if you go back to my vlogs from this last trip and look, you'll see that people were just like sheep. We congregate together, we walk together, even though, you know, we know in theory we should stay 6 feet apart. It's pretty difficult to see that happening on a main street or a main thoroughfare. People walk, you know, they see a little opening in the crowd to cut through, and so you cut through even though you're like, walking right past people when you do that, or stopping to take a picture, and then people are kind of, you know, trying to go around them, but not going 6 feet around them. They're just like, you know, going around them. So the main walkways, I felt a lot less secure because people were walking very close behind, very close to the side, cutting in front of you. And I think that that's going to be true of any place where there are no markers. It's hard to, you know, retrain ourselves not to walk together or try to hurry and catch up, you know. And then any unexpected cues, like, you know, every once in a while, something interesting happens. Like at Hollywood Studios, Ray comes out. She's hiding from the Empire. And so there's a little bit of play acting going, and the cast member who is Ray is interacting with the crowd. And so of course a crowd kind of draws over to that area, and then there's no social distancing going in those type of situations. People are crammed in trying to get a good look. So that's about the only two areas I could say that was kind of like a little bit of a scary, like, just, you know, a poorly managed area, and it's nothing Disney can do. There's nothing people, you know, they can do. People are going to stop in the middle of Main Street to take a picture. People are going to walk in groups. People are going to cut in front of other people trying to get across Main Street to the other side. People are going to, when they see a character or some type of interaction or something interesting happen, they're going to all stop and probably start to congregate a little closer than they should. And that's just human nature. So we all have to do a better job of being aware of our surroundings. And as a family with young kids, we tried to zig while everyone else was zagging, but obviously nothing is perfect. So there is still risk in going. And I think all of, most of us are aware of that. And I want you to be aware of that. Whereas we felt pretty safe, and we are, as I mentioned earlier, going again here in a few days, there is still risk in going, and we have to be aware of that and try to reduce that risk whenever possible. So that was the second half of my Walt Disney World September 2020 high and low trip report. We had a good time. We had some really high highs and some pretty miserable lows, but we still think it was worth it. It was a treat to go, a treat to be there as a family, to see my sister and her kiddos and her husband, who are from Colorado and we do not get to interact with very often. So it was really a good trip. And as I have already, spoiled the news, we are returning in a few days. So I've already started packing, road trip bag and suitcases and swim bag and all that gear. And we are going to be doing another trip down to Disney World, a little bit less Disney centered because we're going to be staying off property. My in-laws have a timeshare down in the Orlando area, and we had rebooked. We had to cancel a trip in April, and at that time they had forced us to rebook sometime in 2020. So this November was really the only time we could squeeze it in. So we're going to do another road trip. We already have our annual passes and they're paid off. So really the only, between the lodging and the tickets, which are already taken care of and paid for, the only expense for us is our food and incidentals while we're down there. So it makes a pretty affordable family trip. We're going to go to the parks 4 days. Going to go to one park, one park each day, kind of spread it out over a week, have a couple of rest days to hopefully go to the pool and Disney Springs. I'm going to be trying some different restaurants. We really got burned with the quick service this last time, so we're going to try to see if there's a way to do dining in a little bit more safely and give that a shot. So yeah, I will be vlogging it. I will be showing you around here and there. So please like this video if you could, and subscribe to my channel so you can be notified when those videos go live. It usually takes me a week or two after getting back home and getting unpacked to start being able to have time to go through and edit my videos and get those ready. So I would imagine by Thanksgiving that series should start to be coming live, and that will have been, we'll be there the week of Veterans Day. So it's going to be a good week. We have low expectations. We're not going with another family, so we can kind of take it at our pace and go with just our kiddos in mind and their interests. We won't worry about the big roller coasters so much since there will be no teenagers with us this time. It'll be kind of letting our kiddos take the reins, and we will see how we do. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your support and your subscriptions. They really do mean a lot to me. I enjoy doing this little Disney channel, and I hope you do as well. Please, if you could, as I said, subscribe to my channel and you will be notified when my next series goes live. And until then, I hope you have a wonderful day and we will talk soon. Bye-bye.